Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Have you ever looked through your pocket change and wondered whether an ordinary looking could actually be worth much more than cents? Today, we are taking a detailed look at the coins. Coin number 1. This 1991 with D Jefferson Nickel, a coin that may look completely ordinary at first glance, but can become much more interesting when you examine its date, mint mark, condition, strike quality, and possible varieties. In this video, we are focusing on a 1991 Jefferson Nickel with a D mint mark in very fine condition with a featured market value of $95 for the example discussed in this video. But before you rush to your coin jar and assume every 1991 with D nickel is worth $95, there are some very important details every collector needs to understand. The actual market value of a coin depends heavily on its grade, preservation, errors or varieties, strike characteristics, and whether the coin has been professionally authenticated and graded. The Jefferson Nickel is one of the most recognizable United States coins ever produced. It has been part of American coinage since 1938 and was designed by Felix Schlag. The coin features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Jefferson's famous home, Monticello, on the reverse. Because Jefferson nickels were produced in enormous quantities over many decades, most examples are common and inexpensive. However, that does not mean collectors should ignore modern Jefferson nickels. Certain dates, mint marks, errors, varieties, unusually high grades and coins with exceptional strike characteristics can attract collectors and sometimes command substantial premiums. Now let's focus specifically on the 1991 with D Jefferson Nickel. The D mint mark is extremely important because it tells us where the coin was produced. The D represents the Denver Mint, one of the major United States mint facilities. When you examine a 1991 Jefferson Nickel, one of the first things you should do is look carefully at the obverse and identify the date. Once you confirm that the date is 1991, look for the small D mint mark. That little letter can separate a 1991 with D example from a 1991 with P Philadelphia example, and collectors generally catalog these as distinct issues. The 1991 with D Jefferson Nickel was produced in very large numbers. One reference gives a mintage of approximately 436.5 million pieces, which means the date itself is not considered a classic rarity simply because it is a 1991 with D. This is an important point for today's collectors. A coin can be collectible without being rare, and a common date coin can sometimes become valuable when it possesses an unusual characteristic. That is why experienced collectors do not simply ask, "What year is this?" They ask several additional questions. What mint made it? What is the condition? How strong is the strike? Are there errors or varieties? Are the details original? Does the coin have full steps? Has it been professionally graded? And most importantly, what have comparable examples actually sold for? Let's start with the obverse of the coin. The obverse features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left. Around Jefferson's portrait are the inscriptions, "In God We Trust and Liberty," along with the date, 1991. On a circulated, very fine coin, you should expect to see some evidence of wear across the highest portions of Jefferson's portrait and hair. However, the major design elements should remain clearly visible. A coin described as very fine should retain substantial detail compared with heavily worn examples. When examining the obverse, pay particular attention to Jefferson's hair, cheek, jawline, and the lettering. Wear tends to appear first on the highest points of the design. If the coin has been circulated for years, small marks, scratches, discoloration, and contact marks may be present. None of these automatically make the coin rare. However, the overall combination of wear and preservation helps determine the coin's grade and therefore its potential market value. Another important feature is the word Liberty. Look carefully at the lettering and the date. The date should be clearly readable. On a normal circulated Jefferson nickel, the date is generally not difficult to identify, but damage or environmental exposure can sometimes make individual digits appear weaker than expected. Collectors should avoid assuming that every unusual-looking digit is an error. A genuine mint variety normally has characteristics that can be consistently identified and compared with known examples. One of the most important lessons in coin collecting is that damage is not the same thing as an error. A coin may become scratched, dented, bent, chemically discolored, or damaged after leaving the mint. These conditions can make a coin look unusual, but they usually do not make it more valuable. Genuine mint errors occur during the manufacturing process, and they generally have identifiable characteristics that distinguish them from ordinary post-mint damage. This distinction becomes especially important with modern coins because millions of pieces have circulated. A collector may discover a nickel with a strange-looking letter or an unusual mark and immediately think it is a rare variety. In reality, many apparent errors are caused by contact with other coins, machines, jewelry, tools, chemicals, or harsh cleaning methods. Before assigning a premium value, always compare the coin against reliable references and, when necessary, seek an experienced numismatist's opinion. This is one of the reasons you should always inspect the reverse carefully. Take your time. Do not simply glance at the coin and put it back in your collection. Use a magnifying glass if necessary. Look at the horizontal lines and step structure beneath Monticello. Are the lines clear? Are they complete? Are there interruptions? Are there scratches crossing the steps? Is the weakness caused by circulation or by an incomplete strike? These details can help determine whether your coin deserves additional research. That actually makes the search more exciting. Instead of assuming every 1991 with D nickel is valuable, collectors can use this information as a checklist. First, confirm the year. Second, confirm the D mint mark. Third, evaluate the condition. Fourth, examine the reverse for full steps. Fifth, search for legitimate errors or varieties. Sixth, compare recent sales of similar coins. And finally, consider professional grading if the potential value justifies it. If you have a 1991 with D Jefferson Nickel, take a few minutes today to examine it. You may discover that it is a normal circulated nickel worth around its face value, or you may discover something unusual that deserves further research. The important thing is not to assume either way. Look closely, compare carefully, and learn how to identify what you... Next, coin number 2. This 1997 with D Jefferson Nickel, a coin that may appear ordinary at first glance, but becomes much more interesting when we examine its date, mint mark, condition, strike quality, surface preservation, and possible varieties. In this video, we are focusing specifically on a 1997 Jefferson Nickel with a D mint mark in very fine condition, with a featured market value of $87 for the example described in this video. But there is an important lesson here for every collector. The value of a coin depends on the individual specimen, and a stated market value should never be treated as a guaranteed price for every coin carrying the same date and mint mark. The 1997 with D Jefferson Nickel is part of the long-running Jefferson Nickel series that began in 1938. The design was created by Felix Schlag, whose work introduced Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse. This design became one of the most familiar coin designs in American history. For generations, Americans have carried Jefferson nickels in their pockets, placed them in jars, spent them at stores, and occasionally pulled them aside because something about the coin looked unusual. That simple habit of checking change is one of the reasons coin collecting continues to attract new enthusiasts. When examining a 1997 with D Jefferson Nickel, use good lighting. Avoid judging the coin under a dim room light because shadows can hide important details. A bright, indirect light source can help you see the contours of Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, the date, and the surface of the coin. If necessary, use a magnifying glass. You don't need expensive equipment to begin. Even a simple magnifier can help you notice details that are difficult to see with the naked eye. The next thing to consider is condition. Your example is described as being in very fine condition. Very fine is a circulated grade, meaning the coin has experienced wear from use. A very fine Jefferson nickel should still retain substantial detail, but the highest points of the design will show noticeable flattening or wear. Jefferson's hair, cheek, jaw, and other raised areas can provide clues about the amount of circulation the coin has experienced. Condition is one of the most important factors in determining collectible value. Two coins can have exactly the same date and mint mark, but have dramatically different values because one coin has been heavily circulated while the other has remained almost untouched since leaving the mint. This difference becomes particularly important for Jefferson nickels because collectors often pay strong premiums for exceptional uncirculated examples. The reverse of the 1997 with D Jefferson Nickel is where things become especially interesting. Flip the coin over and you will see Monticello, the famous Virginia home associated with Thomas Jefferson. Above the building is the word Monticello, while the surrounding inscriptions include E pluribus unum, United States of America, and 5 cents. If you're looking for a potentially premium Jefferson nickel, spend extra time examining the area beneath Monticello. The steps are important. Collectors often look for coins with exceptionally sharp and complete step details, known as full steps or FS. Full steps can significantly increase the desirability of a Jefferson nickel, especially in high mint state grades. This is why experienced collectors examine coins carefully instead of relying only on the date. The date tells you when the coin was produced. The mint mark tells you where it was produced. The condition tells you how well it survived. The strike tells you how strongly the design was impressed into the plancher. The surfaces tell you how much damage or contact the coin experienced. And varieties or errors can add another layer of interest. Another area to investigate is doubling. Some collectors find coins where letters or numbers appear to have a second image next to them. But not every doubled-looking feature is a doubled die. Machine doubling and other forms of strike-related distortion can create misleading appearances. A genuine doubled die has specific characteristics that should be studied carefully. This is why patience is one of the most valuable tools in coin collecting. Don't rush to sell a coin simply because someone online claims it is rare. Don't clean the coin to make it look brighter. Don't polish it. Don't scrape the surface. And don't alter the coin in an attempt to improve its appearance. Original surfaces are important, and improper cleaning can permanently damage the coin's collector appeal. If your 1997 with D Jefferson Nickel looks unusually nice, hold it only by the edges. Oils from your fingers can leave fingerprints on the surface. Store potentially collectible coins in appropriate holders or albums rather than loose in containers where they can rub against one another. Proper storage is especially important if you're building a collection over many years. The story of the Jefferson nickel itself makes these coins fascinating. Thomas Jefferson was a major figure in American history, and Monticello provides a direct visual connection to his life and legacy. The design also represents an important period in American coinage history. When you hold a Jefferson nickel, you're holding a small piece of American monetary history, even if the coin itself is common. Let's now examine the obverse in greater detail. Start with Jefferson's hair. In a circulated very fine coin, some of the fine lines will have softened. The cheek and jaw may also show wear. Look at the letterings around the coin and check whether it is strong and clear. Examine the date carefully. Make sure all 4 digits are original and not damaged or altered. Next, inspect the demint mark. It should look naturally integrated into the coin's design. If it appears unusually large, distorted, doubled, or misplaced, don't immediately assume it is an error. Compare it against known examples. Mint marks can sometimes look unusual because of lighting, wear, die deterioration, or damage. Now turn the coin over. Examine Monticello. Look at the columns, windows, roofline, and steps. In a circulated very fine example, some of these details will show wear. But if you encounter a coin that appears far sharper than the rest of the collection, that is when you should slow down and investigate. The full steps area deserves special attention. On high-grade Jefferson nickels, collectors look for clearly defined, uninterrupted steps below Monticello. Strong step definition can be difficult to achieve because the design may not strike completely on every coin. Even coins with little circulation can have weak steps because of strike characteristics. Next, coin number 3. This 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel, a United States 5-cent coin carrying the D mint mark, and we are focusing on an example described as being in green condition with a claimed market value of approximately $83.00, At first glance, the 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel may look like a common modern coin, but coin collectors know that condition, strike quality, surface preservation, mint errors, varieties, and especially high-grade characteristics can dramatically change the value of a coin. So if you have a 1999 Jefferson Nickel with a small d under or near Monticello on the reverse, do not immediately throw it back into your change jar. Take a closer look, because the smallest details can sometimes separate an ordinary 5-cent coin from a collectible example. The first thing you should check on a 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel is the date. On the obverse, look for the number 1999. The digits should be clearly visible and consistent with the normal Jefferson Nickel design. Because the coin is relatively modern, the date is normally easy to identify even on circulated examples. However, scratches, corrosion, staining, or heavy wear can sometimes interfere with the details. Use good lighting and, if necessary, a magnifying glass. Avoid cleaning the coin while examining it. Cleaning can leave scratches and unnatural surfaces that collectors may consider damage. For the 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel, high-grade condition is especially important because the date itself was produced in very large numbers. A large mintage means collectors cannot simply look at the year and assume the coin is rare. Instead, they must ask a much more important question. How exceptional is this particular example? A common coin in ordinary condition may remain a common coin, while a sharply struck example with pristine surfaces and desirable full steps can attract much more attention. If your coin appears dramatically off-center, compare the date and design with the surrounding rim. A genuine off-center strike may show an obvious area where the design is missing because the planchet was not properly centered during striking. The degree of the off-center strike can influence desirability. Minor irregularities are generally much less impressive than major, clearly documented errors. Die cracks can also attract attention. These occur when a die develops a crack that transfers into the design of struck coins. Look around the lettering, portrait, rim, and other design areas for raised lines that appear to originate from the die itself. Again, caution is essential. A scratch usually cuts into the surface, while a die crack is generally raised because it represents metal flowing into a crack or defect in the die. Proper identification is important before assigning any additional value. Do not clean the coin before sending it for evaluation. This is one of the most important rules for beginning collectors. Never use abrasive materials, chemicals, polishing compounds, household cleaners, or cloths to try to make a coin look brighter. A coin that looks dirty but retains original surfaces can be more desirable than a coin that has been aggressively cleaned. Once a coin has been damaged by cleaning, the original surface may not be recoverable. Storage also matters. If you think you have a valuable 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel, keep it in a proper, non-damaging holder. Avoid loose storage where the coin can rub against other coins. Do not handle the surfaces unnecessarily. Hold the coin by its edges whenever possible. Finger oils and dirt can affect the surface over time. One of the most exciting things about coin collecting is that value is not always obvious from appearance. A coin can look ordinary but contain an unusual characteristic. Conversely, a coin can look spectacular in a photograph but have little collector premium. The key is learning how to distinguish genuine numismatic characteristics from ordinary wear, environmental damage, and post-mint alterations. The 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel is a particularly interesting example because it is modern enough that many people still encounter these coins in circulation, yet collectors continue to search for high-grade specimens. The huge production number means that finding the date is easy, but finding a truly exceptional example is another matter. High-quality coins with sharp strikes and strong step details can become much more interesting to collectors. So, what should you do if you find a 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel in your collection? First, confirm the date. Second, confirm the D mint mark. Third, examine the condition. Fourth, inspect the Monticello steps. Fifth, check for genuine mint errors. Sixth, look carefully at the surfaces and color. And finally, compare your coin with reliable sold examples or have it evaluated by a qualified professional if you believe it could have substantial value. And that is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You do not need to start with an ancient gold coin or a famous rare penny. Sometimes, the hunt begins with something as simple as a Jefferson nickel sitting at the bottom of a drawer, a jar of coins, or an old collection. The excitement comes from examining the details and learning what separates an ordinary coin from an extraordinary one. If you're 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel really does have unusual green toning, strong original surfaces, exceptional full steps, or a genuine mint error. Document everything carefully before deciding what it is worth. A professional grade and authentication can provide much stronger evidence than an online estimate or a social media post. So, before you spend that old 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel, take another look. Check the date. Check the D mint mark. Study Jefferson's portrait. Inspect Monticello. Look closely at the steps. Examine the surfaces. Search for genuine errors. And most importantly, do not clean the coin. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos about valuable US coins, Jefferson nickels, Washington quarters, Roosevelt dimes, Lincoln wheat pennies, rare mint errors, coin grading, and today's collectible coin market. Share this video with another coin collector and let us know in the comments whether you have ever found a 1999 with D Jefferson Nickel with unusual color, full steps, or an interesting mint error.